Last month on Free Mama TV, we broke down the top 10 things free mamas wish they knew before they started their virtual business. And today we are stripping away the script and all the editing and cool stuff that we usually do here on this channel so that we can get super intimate with one another. And I'm going to let you know my biggest lessons learned, what I wish I would have known before I started freelancing, before I started the Free Mama movement, all kinds of mistakes that I made along the way that now just make me laugh. But at the time, they really seemed so significant. Like every teeny tiny decision felt like it could make or break not just my business, but my belief system and my self-esteem and, like, dare I dramatically say, my life. But I've really evolved and changed the way that I feel a lot about these mistakes that I made. So if you guys are ready to go unscripted with me today on Free Mama TV, we'll dive in a minute. We're going to cue the soundtrack though. See you in a sec. So I first found out about freelancing. Well, that's not even true. I knew what freelancing was. I worked at a school. That was my last 9-to-5 job. And I worked at a school and we hired freelancers. Like, we had independent contractors who did the school's website and who did graphic design. We had like a school newsletter. And what's interesting is I was actually the point person for a lot of those contractors. And at no point did it ever, and at previous, gosh, I look back and it's like, oh man, this was really obvious and we didn't see it. At other jobs I held, I was actually a point person for contractors who did copywriting and did photographers, freelance photographers, and again, graphic designers. And so it's interesting. It wasn't until I saw a webinar on the interwebs, which maybe what brought you to the Free Mama community as well, back in 2014-15, that it ever occurred to me that freelancing is something that was accessible to me, something that I could do and not just provide for my family, but that I actually held skills and talents that would allow me to have a sustainable business from my computer that could help me provide for my family. And you know, I was really hung up on a lot of the small stuff, like super hung up on it. Even after this webinar, it was like, what about health insurance? Like, and 401k stuff. I think I actually had a 403b, whatever that is, because I worked at a nonprofit. But I couldn't fathom not being at a traditional 9-to-5 because I think it's so ingrained in our culture and in the status quo and kind of the environment that we live in and we hear about from elementary school to college if you make it to higher education. It never occurred to me that, Lauren, all these people you're working with at your 9-to-5 job who are independent contractors, like, maybe you could ask one of them what they do for health insurance. Like, you're not the first person to have this block and not know what to do. And I was so mentally stuck. Like, I was forcing it so hard because I was so miserable at my job at the time and not showing up as the mom I wanted to be at home. At the time, we had two and under. My husband is also very entrepreneurial. He's much more the visionary, much more the CEO. And I wanted it so bad that I was like forcing it. Like, I was forcing it, but at the same time, like, I was forcing it into this like flat hand of resistance, thinking of all the reasons why I couldn't do it. Both like limiting belief stuff, like I wasn't good enough. I remember with my very first freelancing client, which, by the way, here's your pro tip. My very first freelancing client was my boss's spouse, and he's a realtor, and I did social media management for him. I was doing some social media at the school that I worked for. And I said, I'm going to start a side gig. I'm going to help more people with this. And I told my boss, and she was like, oh, my husband needs help with that. And I'm like, okay. And I remember the day that I drove to his house and I like sat in my car trying not to throw up in my mouth for like a solid 3 minutes before going inside. And during that time, the conversation, the voices that were happening in my head was, what if he knows more than me? Like, what if I think I know social media? I mean, I'm a freaking millennial. Like, Facebook came out when I was in college and these people were probably in their 50s at the time. And I'm like, sitting there thinking that he probably knows more than me. And what if he thinks, like, what if they find out that I'm a fraud and I'm totally making this up as I go? And and I care and I'm a hard worker and I know how to use Google. So I'm going to figure it out. But like, what if they figure out like I'm not perfect or I'm not as smart as I think I am or that they know more than me? And years later, when I got into the coaching world and realized that was even a thing, I realized that there's a name for this. It's called imposter syndrome. And so going to lessons learned, it's like, I wish I wouldn't have forced it so much. I wish I would have trusted the process and like not been so close to the goal. Like the goal was like, I want to quit my job. I want to freelance, but I was just like running into the wall instead of taking a step back so that I could get a wider perspective, like a panoramic view of like, freelancers, ask what they do for the things that you feel hung up on. As far as the belief in myself now, after working with so many people and being in business for so many years and kind of being exposed to the coaching world and the concept of mindset, which really started with Carol Dweck's book Mindset, which if you haven't read, you should. It's very eye-opening in terms of how there's kind of two ways to approach the world. And I was really approaching it with this fixed mindset of like, this is what I know, and this is how smart I am, and that's it. Instead of this growth mindset, which I now know of like, we can do hard things and learn more. We can change bad habits. We can improve the way that we feel about ourselves or the way that we feel about anything. And it's really cool because that's been a gift in parenting as well. So going back to this very first meeting with this realtor, it's like, I wish that if I approached that situation with the knowledge that I have now about everybody feels that way. Everybody has imposter syndrome. Everybody has convinced themselves in between their ears that other people know more than them. And knowing that is really empowering. And then getting experience, having clients, and then getting like actual tangible proof that you're competent and you're smart and you can follow through on the things you say you're going to do. And you can always be learning and growing and challenging yourself. And that not being perfect or making mistakes doesn't mean something bad about you or your ability to do work. If I knew all of this that I know now, if I knew that in that situation, a couple things would have happened. Number one, I probably wouldn't have worked with a realtor because that I realized very quickly was not my ideal client. But number two, I would have charged 5 times as much as I charged with my first client. But here's the other thing that I want you to know that I've learned, even with coaches, even with programs and courses and anything, we all have to kind of progress through these lessons learned. Like you can watch this video and you can go watch the one of our top 10 list from all the free mamas and you can hear these things, but you're not going to believe them until you experience them. And so I think one of my biggest lessons learned is like, you've got to get it going and then you refine, then you get it perfect. Like all these things we teach on this channel about finding a niche or your ideal client or, time management, even the more like tactical type stuff, like marketing yourself, figuring out your personal brand, like all of this, it's an evolution. It's a journey. It's fluid. It's moving. And Lauren of 2015 wanted everything to be a light switch. She wanted everything to be a checkbox, like a checklist of like, now I've got my niche. Now I've got, my ideal client. Now I know my personal brand and I've done all of this stuff. And like, now I have results. Like now I have success. And I think I've just learned over the years to like, trust the process a little more and trust myself more because I have this history of being someone who follows through. I have this history of being someone who's resourceful. And even if you're brand new to business, like I would guess that the same thing's probably true for you. If you think about your track record, either as an employee or as a friend or as a parent, you've probably made mistakes. Maybe you've let people down before, but I'm guessing it's probably not a habit of yours, or you wouldn't be interested in this online space and starting your own business in the first place. Because that's one thing I knew then and I know now is that when you run a business, you have to find some sort of internal motivation. I guess another lesson that I've learned is I originally started freelancing because I had to work. I mean, we relied on 2 incomes to provide for our family. So I had to produce financially, but I also had this realization that I like to work. I'm good at it. And I like learning new things. And I like thinking strategically. And I like the like result of like accomplishing something. Like parenting, you're never done. My kids don't go to bed at night. Do your kids go to bed at night and like thank you? Like,
thanks for that tough love today, Mom. The boundaries, those were really good. And your discipline, like spot on.
Like that doesn't happen. And so I like the gratification that comes from the work that I do, that I get to experience in a really different way than what motherhood provides. So with that being said, I reconciled that I love working, but the 9 to 5 wasn't working for me. And so I wanted to start my business for my kids, but my why, and I've also realized this from working with so many other women, it's so much deeper than that. A lot of us are inspired to start something because of our family or because of, the life we want to give our kids or the time that we want to spend with them. And that's really beautiful. But I don't know that that sustains people long-term from my own experience. I think what I've learned is, you've got to be self-motivated and you've got to be self-driven, and you have to, I think society wants us to tell us that it's selfish to want to do stuff for yourself, especially as a mom. But I think you have to be internally motivated or find a way, growth mindset, to become internally motivated by what you do, and not that your business is about you. The most successful businesses are actually, those that are focusing on the results they get their clients. And I think the Free Mama is a very heart-centered, people-centered business. But freelancing businesses, one-to-one service providers, you can have that same level of commitment to your clients. But I think it's okay to give yourself permission to do something for you and to find fulfillment from that and joy and purpose. And that's a long way away from, I started my business to be home with my kids. I love my kids. They're going to come through the door literally any minute coming home from school, and maybe I'll let them be in this video. But I think it's important for you to go deeper when we talk about why you're doing something. And so I've really learned that the people who really make it in business, they have a really deep passion in their soul for what they do. Not just, I'm an online business manager, I'm a social media manager, I'm a business coach, but like for the impact that they want to make on other people. And it doesn't have to be like, I'm saving the world. Like you can be saving a CEO from their business collapsing or from their marriage collapsing because of how much they're working in their business. And that has a really big impact on the world as well. So anyway, we went super deep for a second. Thanks for going along with me there. The other thing that I've learned that I want to share with you, or maybe the last thing, maybe not, we'll decide here in a second. But another thing that I've learned from you, and we're going to like cue some B-roll here during all of this, but something else that I've learned is that you will always be your own worst critic. You will always be your own worst critic. And I go back and I'm going to watch this video in like 5 minutes and I'm going to be like, that was garbage. We're redoing it. But we're our own worst critic. And I go back and I look at some of the work that I produced for my first freelancing clients. And I'm like, how did they pay me to do this? Like what was happening here? Like, this is just not good stuff. So we're going to open up Canva and make sure you guys see some of the stuff that I did. And it just makes me laugh, but it also makes me so filled with gratitude, because it's easy in this world to get into the comparison mode. And I actually almost didn't launch the Free Mama movement for 9 months. For 9 months, you guys, for the same amount of time it takes to grow and birth a baby, 9 months, I talked myself out of starting the Free Mama movement because there was someone else on the internet talking to moms about business. And that just broke my millennial heart. And so something else that I've learned is not only are we our own worst critic, but we're constantly growing and we're constantly evolving. And we've got to be nice to ourselves and not give into this comparison thing of like, well, somebody else is doing it. That's actually a great thing. It means there's a market for what you want to sell. Like, that's a good thing. Don't let your like snowflake millennial mind like mine, let that convince you not to pursue your dreams. You want there to be a market for what you do. You inherently will be different than anybody else. And that's awesome. Plus we can work through all the points of differentiation and all this stuff. Like, that's all, there's a solution to all of that, right? But I see so many people getting stuck because they think somebody else is ahead of them or somebody else is better than them or whatever. And I've learned that the only person I'm in competition with myself is the version of me from yesterday. How can I be better towards my clients, my students? How can I be better towards my children? For me, that looks like yelling less. I'm just a loud person and very passion filled, but we're working on it because it doesn't feel good for me at the end of the day. And they don't really like it or respond to it either. How can I be a better wife? How can I keep growing on this life journey and this business journey to keep becoming the best version of myself and not beating myself up for who I was yesterday. And that goes big scale of like making a mistake as a parent or like screwing up huge in my business or whatever. And it goes down really small to like the nitpicky stuff. Like I could do so much better in Canva, or I could make such a better video today. It's like, at what point is good enough? And knowing like, as long as I did my best at the time, or I'm doing my best tomorrow, like sometimes we just got to like give ourselves that grace. And I've really sunk into that over the years, but it took me a lot of getting over my perfectionist tendencies, a lot of caring more about what I think about myself than what other people think about me. And that's hard, man. Like this is some, like you've got to really figure out who you are and what your values are. And another book that I'll shout out is The Values Factor. Great book. I listened to it last summer twice. I was on a road trip with my family, RV, 8 weeks all summer, which never would have happened if I didn't start to embody all the lessons we've talked about in this video, and what I teach on this channel of Free Mama TV, goal setting, all this stuff. And it was really eye-opening, the same way that mindset was. This idea of this values factor, that your actions, and think about this for a second, your actions will always be in alignment with your values. So if you say like you value, self-care, you value time with your family, but you are not living a lifestyle that reflects that, we've got some like fine tuning to do. Like there's somehow your actions will always reflect that. And so, if you're not feeling like you're spending any time with your family because you're working, because in your mind, like you work to provide for your family, like we've got to, like, there's some wiggling there. So great read. Definitely check that out. But again, it's not a light switch. It's not a checklist. It's not like now I live my life in alignment with my values. It's constant recalibration, like constantly going, is my time in alignment with my values this week? Is the work that I'm doing, does it make me happy, or do we need to reevaluate something there? And just taking inventory. So friends, we covered a lot, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else that wasn't in the first video that we did that I want to share with you. Okay, last one for real. And then the kids are definitely going to walk in. You've got to change your relationship with failure. So, I'm really type A, and you may or may not be. I'm like super type A, and I'm a human. I still make errors. If my husband was here, he would laugh because I don't typically apologize when I make errors in our marriage. That's like super hard for me. But like I said, we're working on it. We believe it's possible. Growth mindset, you guys. But I don't make a lot of mistakes. So when I make a mistake, it's easy for me to be really hard on myself, or to, create all these stories about what if this doesn't work out? What if this fails? What if whatever? And I've really over the years changed my relationship with both failure as well as making mistakes. And if you can do this, if you can change your relationship to a place where you are looking for the lesson and finding gratitude for it. And I know this sounds like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I really messed up, or, I lost, $5,000 the last time I started a business venture, or $500,000. And I'm really scared to start again because of what that failure means. But again, if you can look at failure and mistakes and change your relationship with it to appreciate making mistakes, and to appreciate quote unquote failing because of the lessons that you learn, because that adds all this arsenal to like your kit or whatever, so that you're better equipped next time to handle these extreme situations. Because life is hard, you guys. Like, it's hard, and stuff happens, and challenges will come up, and pandemics, hopefully we don't have another one in our lifetime, but who knows? Like, stuff will happen, and stuff will happen in your business. You'll lose your highest paying client, or, whatever. Like, stuff happens all the time and affects people, but it's through the failures and through the mistakes that you're learning the biggest lessons. I can assure you, it's not from the success that you create that you're having these big learning moments. You're having these successful moments because of the things you've learned. And the greatest teacher, I think, is failure or mistakes. And so, being grateful for that and going, wow, this is like super duper going to equip me for all of the impact I'm supposed to have in the future, for all the ways I need to help people or myself or my family members be able to navigate hard times later on. Like, Thanks, universe. Not that you can't be upset about it, by the way. Like, you can throw a pity party, you can cry and like yell and whatever and vent to your friends and family, but then recoup as quickly as possible and find that gratitude. So that's what I got for you. Those are my biggest lessons learned, you guys. We covered a lot. I think it's important that you know that as soon as I stopped talking, the garage opened, which is also probably another lesson learned. If you work from home and you're a mom, there will be noises in the background and kids will come in at some point or right after you're done recording. Or the dad will come in. Do you want to come say hi? Myself. I kept saying my family's going to come in at any point. It's lessons learned. Hi, guys. You want to come be on video? Come say hi. Come show your braces. Daphne just got braces today. Come say hi. Want to say hi? Oh, we're checking out those. Check out those teeth. Oh, we're about to lose one here. We lost one there. Hey, Subi. Want to say hi? Oh, we got Pigtail Girl. It's just us.
Subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified
when we post new videos right here each and every Tuesday. No, say subscribe and hit the bell to be notified.
Click the
subscribe.
Click the
No, just say subscribe.
Right? I need you to buy Tostito chips.
We're gonna go get some Tostito chips.